On today's episode, I'll break down everything to note before the Blackhawks face off with Lukas Reichel and the Canucks, and also dive into Nick Lardis' exceptional first month of professional hockey.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another game day preview edition of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Just a quick heads up if you're tuning into this after the conclusion of the Blackhawks and Canucks game because you want to hear more about top prospect Nick Lardis, that is going to be happening in segment 3 of today's show, which you can easily jump to by clicking down in the description on YouTube or wherever you may be listening to this podcast, because I always time code everything down in the description on every single show. I'm your host, Jack Bushman. Have to let you all know as well that today's episode is sponsored by FanDuel. Go and download the FanDuel app now or check out FanDuel.com to get $300 worth of bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. All right, happy game day, Blackhawks fans, as the Hawks return to action tonight for their fourth game of their current 6-game road trip, where they still remain winless and are off to an 0-2-1 start and are hoping to snap their current 3-game losing skid against the Vancouver Canucks, with the game once again starting at 9 p.m. Central Time. But fortunately, this is the last one of those during this road trip, as in Calgary on Friday night, that game will be starting at 8 p.m. Central Time. And then to conclude the road trip on Sunday in Detroit, not exactly an ideal time for those of us who enjoy watching NFL football, as puck drop at Little Caesars Arena comes at 12 p.m. noon Central Time as well. But fortunately here for this matchup, this late night matchup between the Blackhawks and Canucks, there are a lot of intriguing storylines, including Connor Bedard returning to his hometown and playing his hometown team. Lukas Reichel, of course, facing off against the Blackhawks for the first time since being traded by them less than 2 weeks ago. Connor Garland looks like he's going to be returning to the Canucks lineup, and he's their leading point scorer so far this year. Ilya Mikheyev, the former Canuck, maybe a little bit of a revenge game in store for him. And speaking of revenge games, that's been the case whenever Kevin Lankinen has been in net against the Blackhawks. He'll be making his second start of the season already against his former team here tonight at Rogers Arena. And then there's also the fact that the Canucks have won each of the last 11 meetings between these two teams and 15 of the past 17 dating back to March of 2019. And in the first matchup between these squads earlier this season, back on October 17th at the United Center, the Hawks sure had a good opportunity to put an end to this skid as they jumped ahead 2-0, got goals in the first period from Tyler Bertuzzi and Ryan Donato, had all of the momentum with the Canucks on the back end of a road back-to-back, only to let them claw their way back into the game during the second period, which has continued to give the Blackhawks fits really ever since. And then the Canucks wind up coming away with 2 points by beating the Blackhawks 3-2 in a shootout. So Hawks are going for a little bit of redemption here, a little bit of revenge in their own right. So should be a very good matchup for multiple different reasons when these two teams meet up in Vancouver. As far as the Blackhawks projected lineup, they just wrapped up the morning skate about an hour ago. Really funny / tragic / sad Blackhawks fans. I've actually already recorded this episode, but unfortunately, I guess I accidentally pressed the mute button on my microphone. So when I went to go and play it back and listen to it before uploading, I couldn't hear myself whatsoever. So that was definitely unfortunate. It's now about an hour after the Blackhawks morning skate. They didn't go through line rushes once again, but it's pretty clear cut one way or the other, considering Blashill continues to go with the 11 forward, 7 defenseman lineup structure, and there's only 19 active players on the NHL roster, meaning only one guy is going to be the odd man out, and I think we all have a pretty good idea of who that is going to be. Expect Ryan Green, Connor Bedard, and Andre Burakovsky to remain as the top line. They've been the most effective trio for Blashill here so far during the road trip, and Ryan Green continues to look the part up in the top line, even though I think we all recognize that he's probably going to be a third, fourth line center, and more so known for his two-way play at the NHL level. He is a guy who produced 30 points in each of his 3 seasons of college hockey with Boston University and has talked with the media multiple times about how he has the confidence that he can be a consistent offensive contributor. Well, that's definitely been evident ever since he's been boosted up to the top line, as 2 of his 3 points that he's recorded on the season has come in the last 4 games. And Blashill has felt comfortable enough to keep Green on the top line somewhat consistently, and as opposed to, like, giving Bedard, while he's still double shifting him a good amount of times, he's feeling confident enough to put Green up there in a meaningful way, as Green has played over 16 minutes in each of the last 3 contests, which is something he only did once in his opening 10 games. Connor Bedard obviously comes into his hometown of Vancouver riding a 5-game point streak. He continues to elevate all parts of his game to a different level and look like a more improved version of himself, better than ever here so far in his 3rd NHL campaign. Leads the Blackhawks with 16 points through the opening 13 contests. Hasn't been all that great for Bedard in his career, though, against his hometown club, as he's only recorded 2 points, in both of them being assists in 5 career games against Vancouver. And both of those assists, by the way, came in his first ever contest against them. So no points for Bedard in his last 4 games against the Canucks. And he also is yet to record a point in 2 career games in Vancouver. So a couple of different things that he would like to check off, including a win against his hometown club as well, something he hasn't done also, and get that point streak extended to 6 games and help the Blackhawks put an end to their losing skid. And then Andre Burakovsky continues to, maybe be the second best player for the Blackhawks in the early portion of the season here. He's really found some good chemistry along with Connor Bedard. He's entering this one riding not only a 4-game point streak, but has also found the net in 3 consecutive contests, 10 points in his opening 12 games to start off his Blackhawks tenure. And he's also been phenomenal for whatever reason against the Canucks in his career as well. Leads all Blackhawks skaters with 14 assists and 17 points in 21 career games against Vancouver. So hopefully Burakovsky will be able to keep that up and help Connor Bedard and this Blackhawks team, help Bedard get his first win against Vancouver and help the Blackhawks put an end to their 11-game losing skid against the Canucks as well. The second line, I expect it to still be Teuvo Teravainen, Frank Nazar, and Tyler Bertuzzi, even though they haven't found the back of the net in 3 games in a row here to start off this road trip. Nazar doesn't have a point in 4 of his last 5 games. He's definitely cooled off after a lightning hot start out of the gate. Teuvo Teravainen has 1 goal and no assists over his last 5 games. Feels like when Tyler Bertuzzi's been producing recently, it's been mostly on the man advantage. And it's not like the second line has really been horrible at 5-on-5. Nazar, I thought, might have had his worst game of the season, at least one of his 2 worst games of the year on Monday in Seattle. But going back to the game against Edmonton on Saturday, against the Winnipeg Jets last Thursday, Nazar was doing some good things, and so was this second line. They just weren't able to get the finished product. Blackhawks really need them to cash in and find the back of the net here this evening. And then the third line, I expect this to be where Oliver Moore is going to play for a 2nd consecutive contest since being recalled from Rockford. And I thought Moore was really sound in his season debut against the Kraken, particularly in that first period where he might have been the most noticeable Blackhawks player on the ice, tallying 4 shot attempts, had 2 individual high danger opportunities, made a really nice feed to, try and get the puck to Ryan Donato all alone out in front. Might have been a little bit too hot for him to handle, but altogether, the way that Oliver Moore went to the dirty areas and found a lot of success there, even if it didn't lead to stats up on the stat sheet, was really, really impressive to me. And as a player who doesn't have like monstrous size, he's about 6 foot, a little more rugged and filled out. He's in good shape, but still isn't like a true power forward in this league, but he played like one on Monday against the Kraken. And I really think if he continues to do that, good things are going to happen for Moore, in addition to the wheels that he provides that allows him to play so aggressive and be so assertive on both sides of the puck. Thought it was a pretty darn good season debut by Oliver Moore and showed that he looks like an NHL player right here, right now. I thought Kyle Davidson made the right call by recalling Moore, even if it was earlier than they probably wanted to just because of the Jason Dickinson injury, and comparing him to Frankie Nazar. Frank got 21 games in the AHL before getting called up more. Has obviously only played 9 so far this year, but I do think the Blackhawks were comfortable bringing him up to the NHL earlier than initially anticipating because he has that decently sized frame that he knows how to use, and he plays a responsible two-way game already. Got a little bit of taste of an NHL action late last season, but I also thought it was the right decision to call up Oliver Moore because he clearly showed a couple of times late last season in the NHL and also in his season debut on Monday that he belongs in this league. He looks like a true NHLer. Expect him to play along with Ryan Donato and Ilya Mikheyev on the third line once again. Donato has gone pointless in 4 of his last 5 contests as well. Did score a goal in the first meeting against the Vancouver Canucks and has a point in each of his last 2 contests against them. So would love to see Donato find a way to chip in and get on the stat sheet again in this one. And then Ilya Mikheyev going up against his former team. Hope he can bring his A game and make a lot of plays on both sides of the puck to help the Blackhawks out. On the fourth line, think it's going to be Colton Dach and Nick Foligno once again, leaving Sam Lafferty as the odd man out. Lafferty has only played once since the home opener back on October 11th, and I'm sure, Blashill doesn't love doing that and sitting him so consistently, but there's just no one really else in the lineup who you want to be having come out. Like Colton Dach, you want to be playing Colton Dach. He's got a higher priority than Sam Lafferty. Obviously, if Oliver Moore's here, he's going to be playing. You're not pulling out Donato. You're not pulling out Mikheyev. You're not pulling out the captain, Nick Foligno. Ryan Green has looked really sharp since being promoted up on the top line too. So just unfortunately leaves Sam Lafferty in a little bit of a tough situation. What I will say is Colton Dach has played less than 10 minutes in each of his last 2 outings. And on Monday in Seattle, played like 8 minutes and 16 seconds, which I believe is a season low for him. Maybe the Blackhawks give him a rest during this game or a couple of the upcoming games on their road trip to potentially give him a little bit of a reset and to also allow Lafferty the opportunity to get in the lineup. But again, Colton Dach is the priority over Sam Lafferty. The young players are the priority. You want to be giving them the opportunities. And as a result, Sam is, I believe now this will be, if he does wind up getting scratched tonight, the 10th time over the last 11 games. On the Blackhawks blue line, don't really think we're going to see any changes in terms of the pairings, but I do wonder, as I kind of talked about in yesterday's episode, could this be the time where Artem Levshinov gets the keys to the top power play unit? Because he's looked a lot better in general than Sam Rinzel has over these last few games, especially in the offensive zone. And Rinzel just made a few real sloppy mistakes and bad passes, poor decisions when the Blackhawks were on the power play and in a close contested game where you need to win the special teams battles. And it's been such a struggle for the Blackhawks to get set up in the offensive zone on the power play. It was really frustrating to see Rinzel make the turnovers that he made. And it's just been a tough stretch for him really ever since the start of this road trip. And ever since I did Blackhawks Deep Dive 1.0 here on the show, it just has not been going as smoothly as we would have hoped for Sammy Rinzel. That's natural though, for a first-year player in the NHL going up against grown men on a nightly basis and going through the NHL schedule grind for the first time as well. But I do wonder if that just results in Artem Levshinov getting a little bit of a greater opportunity. And he played a season high of ice time against the Kraken on Monday. So clearly Blashill is recognizing that Artie Levshinov is growing and getting better with seemingly every passing game. Wonder if that leads to him getting even more time in A, the offensive zone, and B, potentially on the man advantage here this evening. But I do still expect Alex Vlasic, Sam Rinzel to be the top defensive pairing. Wyatt Kaiser, who's been awesome and has bounced back nicely here after a couple of shoddy games there not too long ago. Him and Artem Levshinov, there's a conversation to be made that those have been the 2 best defensemen for the Blackhawks so far this season. Expect them to remain together as the second pairing. Matt Grzelcyk and Connor Murphy as the third. Interesting stat for Matt Grzelcyk that I wanted to bring up. Monday against the Kraken, he finished as a -1 in that game. It was the first time all year where Matt Grzelcyk has had a +/- rating. Incredible. And it's still a +8 for the Blackhawks on the season. he deserves a lot of credit for not being as big of a liability defensively as I thought he was going to be, and continuously like being on the right end of the scoring chance battles, the, shot attempts battles. And some of that is because he does get, started in the offensive zone a lot more than he does in the defensive zone. But I still think altogether, Grizzly has handled himself better defensively than I anticipated to start off his Blackhawks tenure. Connor Murphy, by the way, only played 8 minutes and 30 seconds against the Kraken at Climate Pledge Arena. I didn't go through his career game log, but I'd assume in games that he didn't get injured in, that has to be his lowest time on ice of his NHL career, definitely as a member of the Blackhawks. And I think that just goes to show it also definitely happened because the Blackhawks were chasing in that game and needed more offense. And that's not Murphy's forte, of course. And also, I think it just goes to show the youth movement that's happening on the blue line. I know Murphy is also getting up there in age, but for him to be down on the third pairing is, for the role that he's played for the Blackhawks in the past, it is somewhat notable. And him kind of seeing his ice time dip a little bit less and less, as tough as that is for him, I think it's a result of the young players starting to thrive. Artie Levshinov, as a fellow right-handed defenseman who's been really sound in these last, 3, 4, 5 games, playing the best hockey of his NHL career. That's just simply a result of that. And then Louis Crevier, too, who has started 80% of his zone starts in the defensive zone, but still leads all Blackhawks defensemen with 2 goals on the season and has been on the ice for only 7 goals against in his 12 games played. So Louis Crevier continues to impress for a 7th-round pick back in the 2020 NHL draft. Pretty straightforward, cut and dry lineup for the Blackhawks. Don't really think there's going to be a change tonight, even though they have lost 3 consecutive contests. And last but certainly not least, Spencer Knight. He's been outstanding, albeit in a small sample size in his career against Vancouver. 2-0-1 record with a 1.26 GAA and 957 save percentage in 3 games against the Canucks in his career. Stopped 30 of 32 shots in the first meeting back on October 17th. He did his part. The Blackhawks just didn't give him enough run support and couldn't find a way to beat Kevin Lankinen in the shootout. Needs Spencer to have another big night here this evening to help the Blackhawks get back on track and put an end to their current 3-game losing skid. That's going to take care of the Blackhawks side of things, everyone. Coming up in just a moment here, I'll get into what Lukas Reichel has been up to with the Vancouver Canucks and their projected lineup for tonight's contest. But first, I got to talk to you all real quick about Rougiette. Let's be real. Making excuses doesn't solve anything. And we've all heard them before. It's just stress, or I'm tired, or it happens to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support. And that's where Rougiette comes in. Rougiette.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed ED treatments designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. The process is fast, simple, and private, and it's all handled by real doctors. So go and visit rugiet.com/LockedOnNHL in all caps, and you'll also get 15% off on your first order. Again, that's Rougiette.com, rugiet.com/LockedOnNHL in all caps. And don't forget to use our code LockedOnNHL in all caps so they know that we sent you. Rougiette, stop making excuses and start making moves. As always, just a quick reminder, if you're watching on YouTube, to go and smash that like button. Subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube as well. Thank you all very much. Segment 2 on today's episode, though, getting right into it, getting into everything to know on the Vancouver Canucks side of things. Since that comeback victory at the United Center a couple of weeks ago, hasn't really been smooth sailing for the Canucks, as they've won just 3 of their last 9 games ever since, and come into tonight's matchup with a 7-7-0 record. And a huge reason why the Canucks have kind of been struggling here as of late is because they've dealt with just a ridiculous amount of injuries. They have been starting to get a little bit healthier, which is kind of unfortunate timing-wise for all of us Blackhawks fans. Quinn Hughes just returned to the lineup in their last game on Monday against the Nashville Predators, which resulted in a 5-4 OT win for the Canucks. And then also, as I hinted right off the jump, Connor Garland is expected to return to the lineup here tonight, which is absolutely massive for Vancouver, as he's their leading scorer so far this year with 11 points. And he also has 15 career points in 16 career games against the Blackhawks. So probably one, as I'm sure he's aware of how well he's fared against them historically, probably one he wanted to get back into the lineup for. But even with Quinn Hughes and Connor Garland back, two huge cornerstones of this team, would have been nice to have them, maybe return in a couple games later on this weekend or something. But Vancouver is still expected to be without Teddy Bluger, who participated in the morning skate, but isn't healthy enough to officially return tonight. Philip Hedl is still out in concussion protocol. So is Niels Hoglander. Jonathan Lekaramaki is out as well. And then so is Derek Forbert on the defensive side of things. So some important depth pieces still remain out due to injury for the Vancouver Canucks. As far as what Lukas Reichel has been up to, of course, the Blackhawks just 12 days ago, feels like it was longer than that, at least to me, Blackhawks fans, but just 12 days ago, back on October 24th, the Blackhawks traded Reichel to the Canucks in exchange for a 2027 fourth round pick, which of course was originally the pick the Blackhawks sent to Vancouver in exchange for Ilya Mikheyev and a second round selection, which is just a magnificent trade for general manager Kyle Davidson here in Chicago. But since then, Reichel has now played in his first 6 games as a member of the Vancouver Canucks. And unfortunately, he's still looking for his first point. 0 points and only 7 shots on goal for Reichel in his opening 6 games, along with a -5 plus-minus rating, and he's only won 41.9% of his draws. So not the start that he was looking for. I know he just said to the media after the morning skate today, he wants to prove to Vancouver that they made the right decision by trading for him, but has not gone the way that he has hoped. And they've given him opportunities. He's averaging just under 16 minutes per game, and that was up closer to like 16 and a half, 17 minutes a night in his opening like 2 or 3 contests where they threw him the keys right to a top 6 center opportunity along with Brock Besser and Evander Kane. I think he's played with Kiefer Sherwood as well, but is still looking for that first point, which, knowing how these things go for us Blackhawks fans, it's probably going to come tonight against his former team. But yeah, I do feel for Reichel. I know he wanted to come into this fresh start and put his best foot forward, and they're giving him, like I said, a heck of an opportunity to prove himself, but just kind of like has been the story of his career, sadly, just unfortunately has not been able to put it all together. But should be very interesting to see Lukas Reichel in an opposing sweater and on the opposing bench for the first time since being dealt by the Blackhawks here tonight. As far as the Canucks projected lineup, like the Blackhawks, they did not go through line rushes at their morning skate, but it does sound like Connor Garland is expected to be good to go. I imagine he's jumping up somewhere inside the Canucks top 6, probably on their top line as the leading scorer. Don't know if that means Lukas Reichel is going to be bumped down. Don't know if that means Jake DeBrusk, who's been playing on the top line recently, has been bumped down. But one thing I do want to point out is if you look at the projected bottom 6 of the Canucks, Atu Ratu, Mackenzie McEachern, Arshdeep Baines, Max Sasson, Drew O'Connor. No offense to none of those guys, but it's not exactly the most stand-out-ish bottom 6 forward group that you've ever seen. But basically everyone outside of Reichel, as this is his first career matchup against the Blackhawks, but everyone else in the top 6 for Vancouver, if you go and look at their career numbers against the Blackhawks, they thrive against them for whatever reason. It's not just Connor Garland. Elias Pettersson, I believe, has 17 points in 19 career games against the Blackhawks. Brock Besser has like 21 points in 23 career games. The big dogs, for whatever reason, always are driving the Vancouver Canucks to their victories. And I mentioned earlier, they've won 11 in a row against the Blackhawks. So I feel like if the Hawks, yes, easier said than done, but if they can find a way to shut down those top 2 forward lines, pretty darn good chance that they're going to come away with their first win against the Vancouver Canucks in quite some time. On the defensive side of things, Quinn Hughes, like I mentioned, he's back. I expect to see a lot of him along with Philip Roenick on that top pairing. Quinn Hughes played over 28 minutes in his return to the lineup on Monday against Nashville. Marcus Pettersson, one of 3 Petterssons on the Canucks roster, slotted to play on the second defensive pairing along with Tom Willander, who spent a couple of years with Boston University, where he was a teammate in the NCAA with Ryan Green. So should be fun for those two guys to face off against one another for the first time in the National League. And then the defenseman, Elias Pettersson, is expected to round things out on the third pairing along with the big Tyler Myers. And as I already spoiled a little bit earlier, Kevin Lankinen is officially set to start for the second time already this season against his former team. He stopped 31 of the 33 shots that he faced in that first meeting at the UC back at the United Center to remain perfect in his career against the Blackhawks. Since departing the organization, Lankinen is 4-0-0 with a sub-2 goals against and .932 save percentage in 4 starts. Because of course, these are just how things go for us Blackhawks fans. What I will say, though, in that first meeting, Lankinen was not looking sharp early. He was fighting the puck, both when the Hawks were putting it on net and when he was kind of having to play it to his defenders. But the Blackhawks, I thought, let him off the hook in that one. They had 17 shots on goal. No, they had 15 shots on goal in the opening 20 minutes. And I thought recognized properly that Lankinen was kind of fighting the puck and they were making the simple play and firing everything on cage. But in the final 2 periods plus overtime, they only combined for 18 shots on goal. So I kind of thought they let Lankinen off of the hook in that one. Do give Kevin some credit for responding well and keeping the Blackhawks off of the board in the second and third periods, as well as overtime, obviously. And he also stopped all 3 of the Blackhawks shooters in the shootout. But I do think if the Hawks kept firing the way that they did early on in that game, they probably would have gotten a couple of more by him. And that's actually going to be my number 1 key to victory for the Blackhawks tonight in Vancouver. Something I do want to start bringing back on my preview episodes is 3 keys to victory. My number 1 key to victory for the Blackhawks tonight: get shots on Lankinen early and often. In 3 of his 5 starts so far this year, he's allowed 4 or more goals. And in both of his starts at Rogers Arena, is it Rogers Arena? Yeah, it is Rogers Arena. There's Rogers Place with Edmonton. Always confuses me. In both of his starts so far this year at Rogers Arena, he's given up more than 4 goals, had a save percentage below 90%. And like I just mentioned, he was struggling early on in that game at the UC, and the Blackhawks did a good job of firing biscuits on the cage frequently, but I thought got away from it a little bit as the game carried on. So would love to see the Blackhawks. They could get 35 shots on net on Kevin Lankinen tonight. I think there's a pretty darn good chance that 4 or 5 are going to get by him. And that's definitely something that, they need to do a little bit more of, as they've only scored 6 goals in their last 3 games following that 7-goal output against the Ottawa Senators. Just get the puck on cage a little bit more often. I also think it would be key for the Blackhawks to win key faceoffs, both in the offensive zone and defensive zone. Defensively, don't really have to dive into that. But on the offensive side of things, the power play has kind of been trending in the wrong direction. It's now 21st in the NHL on the season. A big factor for the Blackhawks, as they've struggled to get it set up in the offensive zone, is winning those faceoffs right when the 2-minute clock starts. So you have that setup already afforded to you. And the Blackhawks have been trending in the right direction at the faceoff dot here lately. While Vancouver is 30th in the NHL, 3rd worst in the league in that category, the Blackhawks are now up to 23rd in the NHL. And how about this, Blackhawks fans? Connor Bedard has now won 46.6% of his faceoffs this year. He's elevating every part of his game. Frank Nazar has won 46.0% of his draws, while Ryan Green has won 46.2%. The kids are showing that they're handling and mostly improving well at the faceoff dot so far throughout the course of the season. Big opportunity to go and win the faceoff battle here again tonight, like they did against the Kraken, who were also one of the bottom teams in the NHL at the dot. I think that would go a long way to the Blackhawks, helping, set up their power play a little bit more in the offensive zone. And then last but certainly not least, my 3rd key is you need more offensive help from the 3 forward lines and from the defensemen as well. For how talented and mobile the Blackhawks blue line is, I think it's no knock on Louis Crevier, but it's still disappointing that he's their leading goal scorer with just 2 goals through the opening 13 games. And even though Artem Levshinov, I've given him a lot of praise here on the show recently, still doesn't have a goal yet in his NHL career. Sam Rinzel only has 1 goal on the season. Wyatt Kaiser hasn't found the back of the net yet. Neither has Matt Grzelcyk. The Blackhawks need more help from both their depth forward lines. The second line's been too quiet lately, so has the third line. And then from their defensemen in general, they're talented enough to provide the Blackhawks with more support than they've gotten so far this year. If they get a goal from their defensemen tonight, I like their chances of finally putting an end to their losing skid against Vancouver. All right, there is everything to know before the puck drops at 9 p.m. Central Time at Rogers Arena. Coming up in just a moment here, Blackhawks fans, before I close out today's show, still got to get into an update on top prospect Nick Lardis. But real quick, I also got to talk to you all about another one of today's sponsors, which is FanDuel. I don't know why I have this ad read on here. Apologize. The NFL season is now past the midway point, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for every single kickoff still with a can't miss offer. Because right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. And what I personally love about FanDuel is that it's quick, it's easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. With player props, same-game parlays, and more ways than ever to go and get in on the action, are you ready to play? All you got to do is download the FanDuel app now or visit FanDuel.com today in order to get started. Again, that's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet and get $300 worth of bonus bets when it wins. Segment 3, all around the globe, from North America to overseas in Russia and in Sweden, there are Blackhawks prospects who are tearing it up in multiple professional leagues already this season. And Oliver Moore obviously was one of those guys before getting recalled by the Blackhawks on Monday. Had 9 points in his first 9 career AHL games, but he isn't the only forward that's been cooking down for the Ice Hogs here as of late, as Nick Lardis, of course, is also off to a sensational start to his professional career, and he's already earned his second accolade of the season by being named AHL Rookie of the Month for October yesterday. He was named the AHL Player of the Week a couple of weeks earlier after having a 7-point weekend. 4 points in one single period did Nick Lardis have, and he totaled 12 points, 4 goals, and 8 assists in his opening 8 career AHL games during October, which, funny enough, I went and looked up who won the AHL Player of the Month award, and that was Isaac Rosen for the Rochester Americans, I believe. And he, too, had 4 goals and 8 assists for 12 points in 8 contests. So not only has Nick Lardis been the best rookie in the AHL so far this year, he's been right there with the best players in the entire league. And currently he's only 1 point back, I believe, of the overall league leader, while he's definitely first in rookie points. Found the back of the net in one of his last 2 contests over the weekend, now giving him 13 points through his first 10 professional hockey league games. And how easy the transition from junior to the pro level Lardis has made it look, it is incredible. And obviously his offensive numbers jumped off the charts last year with the Brantford Bulldogs, becoming first player in nearly 2 decades to pot 70 goals in the league, just the 13th player in history to ever tally 70 goals in a single season. But for how well his playmaking has really translated over, and there were obviously concerns about just his 5'11" frame in general and how he would fare against grown men. He's put that to rest pretty early already into his pro career. Obviously, it's still the AHL level. We got to see what he's going to have in store one day down the road against the big dogs. But I am so impressed with how easy Lardis has made this transition look as an undersized skill player. Oliver Moore, I thought, was set up to have more success against pros right here, right now, because he has, as I talked about earlier, that little bit of a thicker frame, and he plays a responsible 2-way game. Had a little bit of a taste of the NHL level late last year before coming into this season. So I thought he was set up to have a little bit more success. Not that I'm less impressed with what Oliver Moore did in his first 9 AHL games, but I just thought it was going to be more difficult for Nick Lardis, and he hasn't really made it look that way whatsoever. Truly been one of the best players in general in the entire AHL at just 20 years of age without ever really having any experience whatsoever. I think he played one regular season game late in the AHL in his previous 2 years, but man, it's been awesome to see his skill set translate over. The playmaking and hockey IQ, I think, has been noticeable as well. And I also love to hear from head coach Jared Nightingale, even if it was a little bit of coach talk potentially, giving Lardis credit for making an effort on the defensive side of things and understanding the defensive systems immediately and doing a good job on that side of the puck. Altogether, Nick Lardis has really impressed me with what he's done to start off his professional career with the Rockford Ice Hogs. And if he keeps up this type of production, I think it's a little difficult to call him up to the NHL just because I think if you call up Nick Lardis, you probably got to send someone down like we just saw happen with Landon Slaggert going down after Oliver Moore went up. I feel like if the Blackhawks want to call up Nick Lardis to the show, Ryan Green might have to be the one going down. And obviously, he's faring well on the top line right now and has showed that he deserves to be an NHL player. There's just not like a clear open roster spot. As I kind of broke down with Sam Lafferty trying to get back into the lineup, it's like if you add Nick Lardis, you got to sub someone out. And I don't necessarily know who that person is at this point in time. But I'll tell you what. If Lardis keeps making the AHL look as easy as he has been and racking up both goals and points, Kyle Davidson is going to have no choice but to go and figure something out. Excellent start to the season for Nick Lardis, the AHL Rookie of the Month for October. That's going to close out today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks, everyone. Hopefully for the second and final time, as I've already, like I said, recorded today's episode. Make sure to go and subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube if you haven't done so already. Follow Locked On Blackhawks for free as well, so that way you don't miss out on any of the latest episodes as soon as they get uploaded. Until next time, Blackhawks fans, go Hawks. Have a great rest of your night. I'll see you next time on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.